So last week we stopped at item 2010. You read only the very first paragraph of that. So we're going to start on the top today. This is the topic of the development of mediumship, which I consider to be perhaps one of the most important topics in this book. Because here it leaves clear to us that we are born mediums, and I mean ostensive mediums once again. When every time that you say the word medium, especially in this chapter, we are referring to ostensive mediums. Mediums who have a much more ample window open to the spirit dimension than the general population of mediums, that it's all of us who receive inspirations, who receive guidance, who receive influences, positive and negative, from the spirit dimension. But the ones who are able to interact at a much higher level with spirits, especially those who are able to write the thoughts of spirits, which is the major topic of discussion in this chapter. Kardec explained to us in the very beginning that he picked psychography because of being the most ample and the most important of all means of interaction with the spirits, because it will leave for us work that can be studied, that can be much further evaluated and dissected to see its importance, to see its relevance, to see it should be kept or not kept. And it also reminds, I would like to remind us that the only way to figure out if anyone has mediumistic abilities for psychography is by putting oneself to the test, using pen or pencil, going to the exercise that I explained here last week. Allow your hands to be gently with a pen or pencil over a paper. Suggest to use a better quality of paper that won't be easily destroyed, especially for the beginners, the novices in psychography. May put the hands way too heavy on the papers and destroy the paper, or facing a more angry, upset spirit may definitely cause damage to the paper. This item 2010 I consider to be extremely important. We read the first paragraph and we discussed it already. So let's read the whole thing and then we comment again. Okay?
Okay. That's 210. The first indication of the ability to write is a sort of quivering in the arm or hand. Little by little, the hand is seized by an impulse that it cannot control. Almost always, in the beginning, only meaningless symbols are traced. Later, the characters become more precise, and finally, the writing progresses to end up acquiring the necessary speed. In all cases, however, it is always necessary to abandon the hand to its natural movement. That is, the hand should be neither hindered nor assisted. Some mediums write fluently and easily from the start, sometimes even from the very first session, but that is quite rare. Others for a long time only succeed at strokes and handwriting. The spirits say that it is to loosen up their hand. If these exercises are too prolonged or degenerate into meaningless scratches, it is undoubtedly a spirit having fun, because good spirits do nothing useless. In such a case, the fervor in appealing to good spirits should be doubled. If despite this there is no change, one should stop once one notices that nothing worthwhile is going to occur. One may make a daily attempt, but should stop at the first equivocal symbol in order not to provide an opportunity for mocking spirits. One spirit added to these observations: there are mediums whose faculty cannot go beyond such symbols. When after a few months they obtain nothing more than insignificant responses such as yes or a no or isolated letters, it would be useless to persist and a waste of paper. These are mediums, but unproductive ones. Moreover, the first communication should only be considered as mere exercises that are entrusted to secondary spirits, a reason for not attributing anything more to them beyond a mediocre value. They should be regarded as spirits employed, so to speak, as writing masters who train the novice medium. We should never believe that high order spirits will lead the medium to perform these preparatorial exercises. In addition, if the medium does not have a serious objective, these preparatorial spirits may remain, wait a minute, may remain and can make a generalized appeal to good spirits.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
So as I spoke last week, regardless of kind of mediumship one have, in order to make the body perform something, it has to use the mechanism of function of the body, the physiology, the anatomy of the human body. So the example for writing is someone's going to write their own thoughts or someone else's thoughts. The mechanism for writing is physiological and anatomically the same. There's electrical chemical conduction that emanates from the central nervous system that travels to the peripheral nervous system that reach the specific group muscles that will contract and relaxing, and in this way will make bones move, and then movement takes place, right? Regardless of whose thought it is, it has to follow this mechanism that makes our body moves. So what is described that most mediums, when they are ready to engage on psychography, especially for the beginners, they will relate that they feel some little changes in the writing hand when they place themselves in a state of trance, meditation, and let's assume that they do have the faculty, and there is the approximation of another perispirit. The hands become the arms become some kind of lighter than usual. Do you feel some tinglings? Do you feel any impulse to write? And sometimes they you actually write without the perception they are writing. Naturally, we're talking here more of cases of mechanical or semi-mechanical mediums, because the fully conscious medium will receive the thought through the approximation of the two perispirits, as we have explained it already, but it will go to the cognitive part of the brain. So the medium will get the thought and will interpret the thought and will write it. It is still psychography. It is still receiving a thought, and at this time have an interpretation of that thought. In the case of the mechanical medium, that thought will go directly to the part of the central nervous system that deals with writing, pretty much bypassing the cognitive function. So the medium will write the thought, not know what it's writing. It will know by the end. And the semi-mechanical, a little bit of this, a little bit of that, of course. Okay. Now, in this process of trying to figure out if you want is or not a medium of psychography, the only way is, again, to try. Some will try and you get it rather quickly, Some will try and will take a while because they actually put words on a paper. Some will take a while to put the words on a paper that doesn't go beyond of monosyllables, words here and there. Some will not, we won't be able to put a whole sentence together after some time. The question that we have to ask, and I do not have the answer again, is we go ahead and try. And let's say twice a week, the group gets together, the group is doing everything in accordance with the teachings of Kardec, place in a safe environment with more experienced mediums, going to prayers and asking, as Kardec suggests here, ask the mentors of the house, ask our Master Jesus Christ, ask God to assist, that if you do have that talent, that allow it to be expressed, if it is for the good of everyone. And sincere prayer in state of trance, it may happen, it may not happen. Question is, when would be safe to say, all right, I've been trying for X amount of times and nothing happens, I'm done. I have concluded I'm not one medium. I don't know exactly 10 times, 20 times, 120 times. I don't know how many times should one come to that conclusion. I think that the individual, him or herself, will reach a conclusion if they're really willing to work in spiritualism. They will reach quickly a conclusion that no, I don't have it. I'll be useful here in the center in a different way. I will do something else because I have come to the conclusion that I do not have this ability of psychography. And for others, it may happen some kind of spontaneously after working with mediumship in different ways. It will feel the need, the desire to write, and we'll discover that besides all the ability of psychography, he or she can also write. And there will be those who will stay on the monosyllable words here and there for a long time. That's what I call here the unproductive mediums. Unproductive mediums, let's not see this as a negative connotation to it, just as a fact that the faculty cannot go beyond that. Should we keep using it? Question is what for? Will you be writing yes or no, or just small syllable here and there, not even able to put together a whole sentence? Likely not. Is there some specific situation that it may be useful? Perhaps. But in general, especially in a center where there is someone with the faculty, I think that medium should apply the effort with something more constructive than just write yes and no, and that's what Kardec's telling us here as well. If an individual who does not have the ability to continue to persist beyond a reasonable time, it may become, the word's not obsession, maybe become influenced by the spirits who just want to have some fun with the persistence of that individual. So that person may put him or herself in some kind of risk association with spirits, not necessarily malevolent, but they just want to waste our time out of their own entertainment. Another thing that calls over here is the writing masters. That perhaps some spirits in the spiritual world and in a specific spiritual center may be the one who you assist those who have the talent of psychography to start the process. having the experience, having the know-how, they may be able to assist the one, again, who already have the seeds of psychography. They cannot implant those seeds over there. We already come with that at the time that we are born. And that is pretty impressive, in my opinion, to see the level of care, the level of attention that our spiritual benefactors have towards us, the level of preparation that goes in the spiritist center, that we receive all kind of assistance. I think that's it here. Is there any questions? Okay, so let's continue.
Right. To 211. The main difficulty encountered by most novice mediums involves having to deal with less evolved spirits, and they should consider themselves fortunate when such spirits are merely frivolous. All their attention should be employed not to allow them to gain a foothold, for once they are firmly attached, it is not always easy to break free of them. This is of paramount importance, especially at the beginning, in which, without taking the necessary precautions, it is possible to lose the fruits of the finest abilities. The first stop here.
Yeah, because this is extremely important, I think. The main difficulty encountered by the most novice mediums involves having to deal with the less evolved spirits. In a proper, nowadays, not at the time of Kardec, not when this book was published, in a proper spiritist center following the guidelines of Kardec, the Mediumship with Christ, I think the number one difficulty is to trust that their thought is external to themselves. That thought comes from a third party. In a well-protected, safe environment, the influence of less evolved spirit would be lesser, I think, is us, the less evolved incarnated individuals who may not trust. I think from experience, by listening to them, is to get the point that you feel confident that this is not my thought. It is the thought from a third party. It's not from a discarnated spirit, and why to start them. And then the second one, I would imagine, that would be to be assessed by less evolved spirit. But I'll save that. In nowadays, after we have this huge literature available for us, we have this book available for us, that I rather believe, in my being perhaps over optimistic, that there is a risk reserved for spiritist centers or spiritualist places who that are making that environment less protected, that are not taking the necessary precautions to avoid this kind of negative influences. And Kardec make a very important point here, is that our attention should be employed not to allow them to gain a foothold. For once they are firmly attached, it's not always easy to break free. This is major. This is major. And again, we can only be protected, safeguarded by our spiritual guide to a certain limit. Again, we are the decision makers of our lives. We are the decision makers of how we use our abilities, how we use our mediumships. The mentors, our guardian angels, can only help us to a certain point. right? Beyond that, it's really our responsibility, and they will do the best. If we go outside of the guidelines and we put ourselves at risk, and we created that association with a level of the spirit being frivolous or being actually malevolent, it's hard to break. It's hard to separate them now. It's like, oh, you let me in, now I'm not leaving. And you can make me go. And of course, it can be done, but not easy. It's a risk that we take, and very often it's a risk that we cause to ourselves. Again, our mentors, our spiritual guides, they will do what they can, but they can go beyond our free will. They can go beyond our choices. Okay.
Okay. The first precaution is for mediums to arm themselves with sincere faith under the protection of God, asking the assistance of their guardian angel. This spirit is always good, whereas familiar spirits who are attuned to the good or bad qualities of the medium may be frivolous or even evil.
Again, thanks. Sorry. Again, extremely important is separation that Kardec makes over here. Kardec suggests that we should ask for assist to our guardian angel, which we like to say spiritual guide, or in the case of a spiritual center who is organized, the benefactors, the workers of the house. That's safe. That's safe. We know we have our loved ones. We have our familiar spirits. You know, you have our uh, those that we love in the spiritual world, and because of our love, we are biased. Because of we have those again, those perhaps even blood relationship. We tend to be biased and only see the good, only see the positive, and close our eyes to the reality that that familiar spirit may not be the best help for us, may not be the one that we should be asking for help, may likely to be the one that we should be sending our help to them. But again, we are biased, and our love may close our eyes to the reality. You may ask those who are not in condition to help, and on contrary, may even be harmful to the medium, to the work. So, as a safeguard, go to your guardian angel. That's a safe thing. And now that you have well-organized spiritist centers following the guidelines of Kardec, the benefactors of that center, the workers of that center, in a sincere prayer, they are there to help us. And be careful with familiar ones. I mean, I don't want to call any names over here because if I say, oh, I'm gonna ask for my grandpa, for my mama, I don't know, maybe they love us, but they are not in condition to help us. They perhaps need more help than we do.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. The second precaution is for them to dedicate themselves with scrupulous care to recognizing, through all the indications that experience offers, the nature of the first communicating spirits, whom it is always prudent to distrust. If the indications are suspect, they should fervently appeal to their guardian angel and repel the evil spirit all their might in order to discourage it by showing that it cannot deceive them. That is why a study of the doctrine beforehand is indispensable if the medium intends to avoid the trouble that is inseparable from a lack of experience. Fully developed instructions for this matter may be found in the chapters on obsession and the identity of spirits. Here we will limit ourselves to stating that besides language, we can consider infallible indications of less evolved spirits as including all useless or childish signs, features, figures, and symbols in any kind of bizarre, irregular, and intentionally malformed writing, whether exaggerated in size or ridiculous and unusual in form. Nevertheless, the writing can be very bad, even barely legible, without being unusual, a fact that might depend more on the medium than the spirit itself. We have seen mediums who are so badly deceived that they have measured the superiority of the spirits by the size of the letters, assigning great importance to well-formed ones that appeared to be imprinted characters, a childness that is really incompatible with true superiority.
Okay, thanks.
Mhm.
So here that comes to the two things that he will further explain in this book, which is the problem of obsessions and the problem of identity of spirits. Upon receiving a psychography, reading it, analyzing it, I conclude it to be a frivolous message, to be of a negative content. And by negative content, I just going to say that it goes against the teachings of Christ. It's not in association with the teachings of Christ or go contrary to it. Naturally, it's come from a spirit that is frivolous or that is ill intent, has ill intentions. It's obvious. Then it's a time that spirit to take that medium, to take a break. Definitely pray, definitely to revisit him or herself. What am I doing? Why this is happening? Okay, and make sure that once it perceives that kind of energies, it's in control to stop that psychography, to not continue that work, because again, it's what the good of it. We're not here talking about psychophony in which a well-prepared medium will receive frivolous spirits, will receive spirit who wants to waste our time, we will receive angry, rebellious spirits. So there's always spirits who are in need of help, in need of assistance. Okay, all of them. May a spirit who comes to the center and wants to waste everybody's time is a spirit in need. You may devote very little time to that spirit, but it still is a spirit that is being allowed to communicate. So it's a spirit who needs help. It may happen because that spirit is in really need of help and has the possibility of receiving help, or it may happen because the mentor of the house wants to give a little test to us. We want to see how do we behave when face the situation. But outside of psychophony, why would we spend time with a lower level spirit? Why should we be writing wasteful psychographies? I think they should go in the garbage. Why do you write something to put in the garbage? So you should go ahead and cut it. But in order to do that, you have to be truthful. You have to be very selfless. You have to take yourself out of the equation, that you are there, an instrument of the hand of the spirit. Okay. Because if you allow pride, if you allow vanity to overtake reasoning, then we are very likely to become a victim of those spirits, and they will not lose an opportunity. When they see that vanity out there, oh no, if what I write is good, all the spirits can come to write to me, eloquent, very enlightened, and work at the service of Jesus and period. That's all that I receive. You already put yourself in a very critical situation. They will not miss that. They will use you as a target and they're gonna make fool of you. And they are quite wise. They're well prepared to do so. So it's really up to us to do this work of analyzing with reasoning the messages, of being selfless, take yourself out of the equation as much as possible, and use the guidelines that are going to read the red here for the identity of spirits, and that gives some indications over here. Number one, here that let us here, the language. The language is the first thing that will give the identity of the level of moral qualities of that spirit. And then there are other little silly things over here. For the medium who has a decent handwriting, someone who writes well, and when they receive psychography, is something completely horrible, that's a red flag. That will be different, yes. Especially for those, as I already spoke here, the speed to which the psychography takes place will make that we're not going to be the same as when the medium is writing outside of the medium needs to take faculty at the conscious level. But it'll be somewhat similar. It should be still legible. If it's something that looks more like those Egyptians writing or Chinese writing, when you're writing with the Western alphabet, it's a red flag. If the letter is extremely large or extremely small, it's a red flag. And it's up to the medium and the group to recognize those things. A silly example Kardec uses here, a medium, you say that the bigger the letter, the higher is the spirit, the higher is the moral quality of the spirit. I mean, there has to be somebody in a state of fascination to be such a fool. I'm sorry to say. Right? And how does it happen? Perhaps because of the quality of the lesser moral qualities of the medium, who is full of him or herself, who thinks that through him only great things happen. And they come with this ridiculous idea that the big letter signifies that is a highly evolved spirit. To me, it's even silly, the example. If Kardec used, likely it did happen. Okay, comments here?
Hey, Elmo, can you, if you could expand a little bit more on the handwriting per se? Because sometimes, for the beginners, sometimes the handwriting, might be not readable, but the content, the message is okay or good, whatever. So and you mentioned that sometimes if the handwriting's not okay, let's put that way, is a red flag. Can you expand a little bit more on that?
Yes, if it's starting from the beginning, in which the medium has a decent handwriting that is easily readable in the normal state outside of the mediumistic trance. When it's psychography, it will different again. It will be different, primarily because of the speed in which it's written. And in the case of semi-mechanical or mechanical, it may take more of the qualities of the handwriting of the spirit. So it's not going to be exactly the same. But if it's consistently something that is completely be one is completely unable to read. So what is the reason of doing that work, doing that psychography to begin with? It is in that term. And in the beginning, the novice medium will have difficulty to write. We will have difficulty to allow the hands to do the work more freely. Which will make the difference. Will make a difference in the handwriting. So with time, when the medium becomes more comfortable receiving thought and allow the words to run freely and write them freely, it will resembles more of the handwriting of the medium with the normal alteration because of the speed and everything else. Because when it's your own thought, very often the way we write, let's say, even if it's a whole paragraph, you stop between between sentences. You're gonna look what you write. You're gonna see if the next sentence will make sense, or if you wanna change a word and everything else. When you are doing the psychography, there is none of those thoughts. You just write, write. It's different when you are writing when we are writing for ourselves. That you think of the word, that you think of perhaps a better word. In psychography, it's the speed is much greater. There is less of a thought process going on the selection of words, selection of comma versus a semicolon, comma or a period. Is the tense, is the right tense over here, is the right pronoun over here, that when you're writing in psychography, it's not like that, you just write. So it is different, it's not the same. But you should be able to read. And with a little progress of that medium, it will pretty much resemble its natural handwriting, minus, of course, what I have said over here. And again, if it's repeatedly, week after week, every time that you sit to write is something that one cannot read, that's a red flag. That is the red flag is.
You mean a red flag when the medium cannot read at all, not like have difficulty to read. Oh, okay.
Right.
Okay.
It's because let's say I have a horrible handwriting, but I can read what I wrote because it came from me. It's my thought. If I was writing someone else's thought, perhaps I would have a hard time reading my own handwriting because that's a thought from someone else. But I would eventually be able to read. Now, if I cannot read it at all, then it becomes a waste of time. It becomes someone is playing games with my faculty. But again, the most important thing is the content of the message. That is the most important thing to evaluate: the content of the message, the language of the message. Someone very eloquent will write a full page full of wonderful, beautiful words that have to go to a dictionary to get the meaning of those words. But when you put everything together and you dissect it, there is nothing of value in that message. It's an empty message full of beautiful words. It's a red flag. The most important thing, again, is the message itself. Second, the language. And then everything else follows. And again, very important, simple and complex in terms of language does not make the content less or more valuable. It may be written in very simple words and still be of great value.
Thank you. I would like to make a comment because this was an advice from Jusara.
Mm-hmm.
And when a medium doing the psychography, yeah, sometimes, when you are writing with everything going on, you might, have difficulty to put into words or read your own writing. And she taught us to address it right away. Don't let for the next day or something else. So evidently read it, for the group so everyone can have a sense of, if something is valuable, but work on a message, recorded or whatever, so you can better put into words. And sometimes when you are reading, you kind of see that you yourself made like errors, and now is a question. It's okay to correct or to change, maybe in a way that it won't change the content, but will be put on the better way for the readers.
Okay, you making a comment, right? Not a question.
Yeah, I made a
Yeah.
comment in the
Yeah.
beginning, how, and then in the end was a question in order to, if it is okay to, do some changes without changing the content, right? In order to accommodate, English or whatever. Maybe you use a certain phrase that is not
Yes.
it's not
Yes.
used
Yes.
to the proper, to the language in case.
Yes. Yes. That's fine. Perhaps if you read right after you write, some of the energy of those thoughts are still lingering around, and you'll be able to fix anything need to be fixed from the thoughts, the energies of the spirit, or perhaps, at that moment, the word that came to you to write was one that perhaps was a translation from our native language, and perhaps in English another word would be better. Just as long as it's said, it does not change the message. It does not change the content of the message. Yes, you can select a different word. It is said that all the work of Xavier was added by Emmanuel. You'd review everything and kind of edit before it being published.
And also you have to remember that what you are receiving is thought to thought, not word by word, right? So you are putting your own words to the thought of the spirit. So what you're writing, it may not be exactly what the spirit is thinking. So corrections and adjustments are only natural, right? It's and again, especially for in cases where you are receiving psychography in a language that it's not your native language, I think that it even more should be analyzed in terms of the possible mistakes in the language, right? In what was written there. So I think that it's important.
And again, the value of doing right away, where perhaps some of the energy of those thoughts are still lingering around, it makes it easier to make those corrections. And wait until the next day, you have to go home, go to sleep, and life catches you, and then you don't even remember anything anymore at all. You don't even can associate the energy of those thoughts anymore. All right.
Okay.
One more.
Okay. 212. If mediums must avoid unwillingly falling under the dominance of evil spirits, they should even more avoid voluntarily handing themselves over to them. An uncontrolled desire to write should not lead them to believe in the first spirit that comes along, not even with the intention of freeing themselves from it later on when it no longer serves them. Anyone will suffer the consequences of asking for assistance in any matter whatsoever from an evil spirit, who may demand a very steep price for his services. Some individuals who have become impatient with their mediumistic development because it seems to be progressing too slowly get the idea of seeking the help of any spirit whatsoever, even an evil one, planning to send it away later on. Many are quickly answered and immediately begin to write. However, the spirits, not at all minding having been summoned as a last resort, shoot themselves quite unmanageably when it comes time to leave. We have known mediums who were punished for their presumptuousness in thinking that they were strong enough to send such spirits away at will. They were submitted to years of obsession of every kind through the most outrageous hoaxes, through tenacious fascination, or even through physical disasters and the cruelest disappointments. The spirit at first showed itself to be plain evil, but later became hypocritical by trying to make the medium believe that it had reformed, or by pretending that it was actually under the power of the medium, who could supposedly expel it whenever desired.
Thanks. So again, the work Adak's talking about here is not the quality of the spirit, but the quality of the medium, is the moral qualities of the medium. Personally, I have the question, why would someone be so eager to psychograph? Why would one be so obsessed with being a medium of psychography, to resort to ask anyone who wants my help, or anyone who wants to help me, anyone who wants to use me to write, come over, I'm available, what can I be of instruments? I don't care who you are, where you come from, what your intentions are, use me. I'm here, and later on, if I don't like it, just get rid of it, get rid of you. One can imagine that when Kardec was writing this book, and again, I have to go back to this, that the doctrine was in its formation, that the spirit set was in its formations, there was that risk. There was that big risk. And again, I'm speaking of spiritism. I have no idea what mediums of other spiritualistic philosophy or doctrines are doing. I'm talking about spiritism. I'm not talking about what the Afro religions are doing or what the spiritualists of upstate New York are doing, because I don't know. Okay, but I could imagine that at the very beginning of the doctrine, which still in its beginning, by the way, that risk and that kind of mentality could actually take place. But now, in a serious spiritist center, I find it hard to believe this is happening. That mediums, by the time they put themselves to this trial, would have gone to quite some time of theories, should have understood, have read some books, have been in association with the gospel in accordance to spiritism, and would be better prepared to practice mediumship with Jesus, which the most important thing would be patience. Have faith, work, and wait with patience. Right? That was the suggestions of Stephen to Paul, right? Have faith, work hard, and be patient, right? Because if you don't find that guideline, you are going to place yourself at risk. If you think that you can be strong enough to bring anyone to your house and then you kick them out at your will, think again. They may be stronger than you. They may be more powerful than you. But if you don't think so, if you think you are you can outsmart everyone else, you're putting yourself at risk. So this is very important advice of Kardec, that today we say mediumship with Jesus. You may become a victim of fascination, which perhaps the most detrimental, the most hard types of obsession, because there's the one that target primarily your pride and your vanity. And now you start to see yourself as the greatest because the Spirit's telling you so, using your pride. Okay. And if you think that you can outsmart them, remember, they're well prepared, they are invisible. So they can play all kinds of games if you don't have the ability to, again, as I said before, to look at the nature of the message, the language, the content. You'll be able to very often have a very good interpretation of the moral qualities of that spirit. But if you think of yourself first, now you're putting yourself at risk. And the fascination is very difficult because the spirit makes you believe that you are the greatest, that you are the best, that you are doing the right thing. And they may come with things like, you're such a good, benevolent person. Jesus is looking at you, have chosen you because you deserve, because of your hard work, because I see compassion in your heart. And that's why we are going to work together. We are going to revive Christianity to its best. And you big vanity, your big pride, fall for something like that. That's it. You're not going to get rid of that spirit very easily. You can, but we're going to have to do a lot of hard work in order to do so. Questions, comment?
Yeah, when you, of course, we're talking about a serious group, and to try to identify the nature of those spirits. I remember João said something about for the beginners, they are training, and also for some spirits, it's also a training. Is a training both ways. Let's put it that way. So on that process, I don't know if is there any literature on that or your best knowledge on that. Is the medium work like with a group of spirits, with maybe one or two spirits? Because I don't know how it works for all the beginners, but I think I would imagine that most of the time there is no identification of the spirit. Usually there's no name attached. It's just a generic identification, and I've realized that spirits more well trained, they do identify themselves with names or whatever. Not that this is important. Again, as you well said, there's the content of the message. But the question is, in this process of learning from both sides, I believe that the spirits that are being working with the media are in a serious mediumship are not necessarily like high order spirits, but good spirits, and they are also learning through the process, right?
For psychography, it is possible that a spirit may also be initiating its ability to interact perispirit to perispirit with incarnate spirit, and pass its thoughts through the medium. I never read. I don't know how much preparation is that necessary for a spirit to do so. We see that in psychophony, it happens very much automatically because the spirits come in not even know they are talking through through a medium. It doesn't even want to talk, and it happens. So it happens almost against their will, so to say, to psychophony. I don't know if there is much, it's required much preparation of a spirit to pass the thoughts to be written by the medium. But when one have to think, there is always a first time, right? There is always a second time, and always on the first time is a little bit more uneasy, is a little bit more difficult than the other times around. So it's possible that the first, second time is that the spirit is passing thoughts to be written. It may require some kind of preparation, but I never read anything on that term. So how the matter be slightly more complex than the psychophony, but I never read that requires any special training from the spiritual side, as it is required from the medium side.
And the spirits working with the medium, it will not be like I mean, this would be a guess as well. Like every time that comes a psychographer will be a different spirit, right? Because the message they change, the kind of the message itself is always consolation and encouragement and these kind of things, but will not be just from one spirit, right? Would be probably, as I was asking before, from a group of spirits that are doing that work of passing the message to help and also to training that medium for the task.
But that spirit who is providing that psychography may be a worker of that spirit center, or maybe someone who was invited in to provide that message. Or let's take here a case, let's say that I'll have the opportunity, just putting out there that my mother wants to give a message to me or to all of us, because my mom met all of us, right? And it is the very first time that she is having that association with a very spirit of incarnate being. She may have a little bit of difficulty of in that engagement to pass the thought by someone who's come as an invite and wants to give us a message. So the mediums, the spirits providing the psychography, very often will be workers of the house. It can be somebody who comes from the outside to bring a message, or maybe a family member of the workers of that group, or a family member of someone who is receiving a spiritual treatment in that spiritual center, who wants to come and show the gratitude that is being provided to that loved one in that center. There's many possibilities.
Thank you.
Okay, any more questions? So we stop here. 213 next week. Will you make a final prayer already?
Yes, of course.
Thank you.
All spiritual benefactors, our guardian angels, and our beloved Jesus, all that have contributed here in this meeting, giving us all the importance of who we are and what is so important about mediumship, the development of mediumship, to understand, to comprehend, and help both worlds as we are here in this physical world. We are grateful and we are thankful. And as we leave here today, we continue to pray for our brothers and sisters in both worlds and here in this physical world that are going through so much pain and suffering. May we continue with our prayers, guiding and assisting with love and dedication to those that are in need. We pray for our Spiritist Center of New York, for our teachers, our mentors, our mediums, all that work so hard to give us all that we have been given here today. May we continue to return again next week with our prayers and meetings throughout the week. We ask for each and every one of us to keep ourselves focused with all that's going on in this planet Earth with prayers, asking our Father that we could be inspired, guided, and assisted throughout the week. For our family members and all loved ones, that we continue with our prayers. And with that in mind, dear Lord, we ask permission to close our meeting today. So be it.